heard today.
Noam Chomsky, I want to turn for a second to George Mitchell, who President Obama has tapped as the special envoy to the Middle East. Mitchell is the retired Senate Majority Leader, best known for helping to broker Northern Ireland's landmark Good Friday Agreement in 1998, which ended decades of bloody conflict. In 2000, Mitchell was appointed by former President Bill Clinton to head a committee investigating ongoing Israeli-Palestinian violence. Saleh Meridor, Israel's ambassador to Washington, welcomed Obama's appointment of Mitchell, saying Israel holds him in, quote, high regard. This is some of what George Mitchell had to say yesterday.
The Secretary of State have just talked about our long-term objective, and the President himself has said that his administration, and I quote, will make a sustained push working with Israelis and Palestinians to achieve the goal of two states, a Jewish state in Israel and a Palestinian state living side by side in peace and security. This effort must be determined, persevering, and patient. It must be backed up by political capital, economic resources, and focused attention at the highest levels of our government. And it must be firmly rooted in a shared vision of a peaceful future by the people who live in the region. At the direction of the President and the Secretary of State, and in pursuit of the President's policies, I pledge my full effort in the search for peace and stability in the Middle East.
Obama's new Middle East envoy, former Senator George Mitchell. Noam Chomsky, your response.
In Ireland, Mitchell did quite a commendable job, but notice that in Ireland there was an objective, and he helped realize that objective. Peaceful reconciliation. Britain took into account for the first time the grievances of the population, and the terror stopped, okay? And the terror was quite real. In Israel, again, you have to look at what he avoided. He says, yes, we want to have a Palestinian state. Where? Okay. He said not a word about lots of pleasantries about everyone should live in peace and so on. But where's the Palestinian state? Nothing said about the U.S.-backed actions continuing every day, which are undermining any possibility for a viable Palestinian state. The takeover of the territory, the annexation wall, which is what it is, the takeover of the Jordan Valley, the salients that cut through the West Bank and effectively trisected, the hundreds of mostly arbitrary checkpoints designed to make Palestinian life impossible, all going on, not a word about them. So, okay, we can have, in fact, the first Israeli government to talk about a Palestinian state, to even mention the words, was the ultra-right-wing Netanyahu government that came in 1996. They were asked, could Palestinians have a state? Paris, who'd preceded them, said no, never. And Netanyahu's spokesman said, yeah, the fragments of territory that we leave to them, they can call it a state if they want, or they can call it fried chicken. Well, that's basically the attitude. And Mitchell had nothing to say about it. He carefully avoided what he knows for certain is the core problem, the illegal, totally illegal, the criminal U.S.-backed actions, which are systematically taking over the West Bank, just as they did under Clinton, and are undermining the possibility for a viable state.
Noam Chomsky, for Americans who want to figure out how to move now with the new Obama administration to end these atrocities that are occurring in the Middle East, what do you suggest? And also, what's your viewpoint of the divestment movement? Many young people are urging something similar to South Africa to begin pressing increasingly for divestment from Israel.
The position that people who are interested in peace ought to take is very straightforward. I mean, a majority of the American population, considerable majority, already agree with the full Arab League peace plan, not the a little sliver of it that Obama mentioned. The peace plan calls for a two-state settlement on the international border, maybe with minor modifications. That's overwhelming international consensus. The Hamas supports it. Iran has said, they'll go along with...
No, we only have 30 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, so we should push for that. Is divestment a proper tactic? Well, if you look back at South Africa, divestment became a proper tactic after years, decades of education and organizing, to the point where Congress was legislating against trade, corporations were pulling out, and so on. That's what's missing, the education and organizing, which makes it an understandable move. And in fact, if we ever got to that point, you wouldn't even need it, because the U.S. could be brought in line with international opinion.
Noam Chomsky, we want to thank you very much for being with us, and from all of us at Democracy Now!, condolences on the death of Carol, of your wife of more than half a century.
Thank you.
Thanks, Noam. Noam Chomsky, professor of linguistics at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And that does it for our broadcast. If you'd like a copy